I could have just stayed home, and then the next time I go to Buffalo, you're not going to go see me. So I would never do that to myself, because then I would gradually lose my following, and I'd have to get a real job, which is not what I want to do. All right, here we go. Millennials are to blame for inflation. Oh, Jesus. Hey, Billy on the nose. Did you see the CNBC article with the headline stating that millennials are to blame for inflation? No, I didn't. But what little I know about the economy that makes in the Federal Reserve, that makes no sense whatsoever, unless everyone in the Federal Reserve is a millennial. But it was already evil before they got there, so they're just towing the company line, right? He said they eventually had to change the headline because it got roasted hard by people pointing out that half the money supply was printed in the last few years. Yeah. Nothing will cause inflation like printing more money. And it took me the longest time to figure this out. So I'll try to explain it in layman terms, and I'll probably fuck this up because it's been a while since I read up on it. But basically, money, back in the day had value because it represented something of value, being gold. So back in the day, when you had gold, it was very dangerous to have it. If you traveled with it, people would rob you and blah, blah, blah. So then they came up with banks, right? Take your money, you keep it here for safety. So you give them, just to make things easy, you gave them $100 worth of gold, and then they gave you $100 in cash. And what those bills used to say, that it was redeemable for the value of the piece of paper in gold, and you could go into the bank and get your fucking gold back. It was one of the great robberies of all time. And eventually, they took us off the gold standard, and they kept everybody's gold, and they just kept giving out the paper. And what happened is your money has value if there's gold behind it. And how do I do this? Let's just say you had $100 million in gold and you had $100 million in cash. Then $1 is worth, $100 million is worth $100 million, right? It's worth that pile of gold, right? Now, if you just go print another $100 million, you just made the value of the dollar is now cut in half, because all of that money is, you didn't get any more gold. You just printed more money. So the more money you're printing versus that fucking gold, the less each piece of paper is worth, because all of that paper still represents the same amount of gold. So now you have $300 million, but you only have $100 million worth of gold because you didn't get any more fucking gold. So now that dollar is worth like 33.3 cents. And what I don't understand is why they don't just keep prices the same. Like, how do they know that they fucking printed more? Like, how do businesses know that they printed more money? I don't get how that aspect of it works, but it seems, the whole thing is a fucking Ponzi scheme. And at some point, I believe around Richard Nixon, they just worked on Democrat and Republicans, both sides. I'm not blaming either, but I think Nixon was the guy who just finally took us 100% off the gold standard. Woodrow Wilson was the guy that signed off on the Federal Reserve that made it a private corporation. The Federal Reserve is a private corporation of bankers. The joke is it is as Federal Express, and they're a private group of bankers. They're not connected to the government. That's why the president always has to guess what the Fed's going to do, because he has no power or control over them. They control us. They are the official Bernie Madoffs of this country. And I don't know how to undo it or whatever. I felt like Bernie Sanders had some good ideas. And somebody has some good ideas to put bankers in their place when they're called a socialist or a communist. Those are the buzzwords. If somebody's called a socialist or a communist, it means they're trying to help out regular people. And everybody gets, on both sides, gets afraid of that word. And there's just too many fucking people that get elected on both sides that aren't going to do the fucking right thing, and the banks continue to go. So I probably didn't explain it correctly. So you can't blame millennials for inflation, because they didn't go out and print a whole bunch of money while not finding more gold to back it. So I guess now the only thing that gives our dollar value is the fact that the world's oil supply is still measured against U.S. dollars. And I believe, I'm dusting this shit off, I believe that Saddam Hussein was trying to get together with Hugo Chavez, both major oil suppliers, to start, he was going to start putting his stuff out euros per barrel, which who gives him the authority to do that? Who gives us the authority that we were doing it? I don't know. But that was allegedly what he was going to do because he was trying to bankrupt the U.S. so he could get out from us, babysitting him. So, and then that's when we came up with the, hey, he had something to do with 9/11 so we could get fucking rid of that guy and get our own guy in there. That's what the conspiracy theory is about all of that shit. So, but all of these problems are just fucking gigantic. How do you even think of this stuff? How do you even get your head around it? Like, why you would do that to people is beyond me. Like, why you would take their gold and say, we're going to keep it safe, and then just take it for yourself. Like, the fuck is wrong with you? I just don't understand why people would do that. Anyway, on Anything Better, you mentioned how you used to complain about the world banks and how you got nowhere, but I'm here to say you turned me and my friends onto a lot of the stuff we care about today. Keep that rosy chin up and don't ever sell yourself short. All the ranting you did helped spark others into learning about the real enemies of the world. Mission accomplished, Colonel Rubyroids. Yeah, but they're still in power. They're still in power, and they have underground caves and shit. That's why, I just try to live a small life now. What are you going to do? I don't know what their end game is, but they're not going to win by crushing everybody underneath them. At the very least, they're going to have to do their own landscaping and fix their own air conditioners if they get rid of all of us regular people, right? Are you saying people that landscape and fix air conditioners are, air quote, regular? Yes.